This is the BG Sports Show. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Grant Coppersmith.
Well, hello, Grant Coppersmith. How are you, sir?
What is going on?
It's been at least it's been a long time.
This is
Grant.
weird.
It's a little weird. I haven't
happening?
been. I don't know what do I do with my hands? I haven't seen you. I haven't talked to you.
It's radio. You don't need those.
Oh, good. I just need to use my voice. Well, hello, Grant. It's so great to have you back, as we are both back now for an official relaunch of the BG Sports Show-ish, kind of. It's weird, Grant, because we are back, but we are trying to change our name at the same time, though, aren't we?
Yes, we are coming back. We were just very, very busy gentlemen at the end of the last time we recut the show, and we both expressed interest into coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And we never really fully liked our name. We liked it. We embraced it, but we wanted.
We don't really like ourselves, is what it comes down to.
It's not like that. We just wanted something new that's not our names.
Exactly. So that's kind of like the first big thing we need to lead this show off with, is we are trying to figure out a new name for the show, and we'd like your help to do it if possible. You can find us, of course, on Facebook at the BG Sports Show. You can send us a message or post on our Facebook wall and give us show name ideas, or also on Twitter at BG Sports Show as well, at BG Sports Show on Twitter. We were tossing ideas around before the show started, Grant, but I mean, we really don't know. It's going to be a working thing. We already have a new theme song, as you can tell, which is a lot of fun and kind of gets us more, let's go.
Get hyped.
Exactly. So that's kind of the big thing. Maybe we'll bring Grant's Rant back at some point. I
We'll
feel like
see.
that was a thing people enjoyed at one point, just to hear you go off for 30 seconds.
I mean, it's what I do constantly. I did
Exactly.
it yesterday. We were talking about sports, and I was just rambling on people.
And I was like,
dunking
oh,
on
gosh.
fools.
You were like, sit down right now. So yeah, help us figure out a new name for the BG Sports Show, because we want to change it to something else that's better. Maybe it doesn't even have to do with our name either. And if you give us something really cool, maybe we'll give you a hug or something, or maybe we'll send you a Starbucks gift card. I don't know. Either way,
I'll find you. I'll drive to wherever you live, and I'll give you a hug.
There you go. Don't you have like Target gift cards since you work at Target? Can't you hook some people up? Be like, yo.
I could possibly lose my job for doing that, but.
Well, you mean if the show takes off, you'll be fine. You don't need that job, right?
Yeah, that will be fine.
Exactly. All right, well, we have some great stuff to get to today. About a normal-sized show for you today. We're in the middle of all these crazy things. Grant's going back to school again. I am in the middle of work and everything else that I do on a weekly basis as well, too. So let's kind of jump right into it, Grant. We want to talk about the Olympics. We want to talk about Rio, everything that took place. The closing ceremonies have officially ended at this point. The flame hath been extinguished as well.
Which is sad.
It has. It is now done and over.
Yeah, my wife and I, we woke up this morning and we're like, for 2 weeks we've gotten up, and before she went to work or I went to work, we watched some Olympics, and we got up this morning and we're like ready to watch some Olympics, and then we're like, oh yeah, it's over. It's done.
Not so much.
But, it was still good. It was a great games, even though it was shrouded in controversy with the body parts washing up on the beach,
goodness.
the water turning green before the Olympics with the Zika virus, when athletes were getting to the Olympic Village, some of the rooms weren't done. There was flooding because pipes weren't finished. There was just handful
Clothes
of
were getting
problems.
taken off.
The Mongolian coaches.
Mongolians were losing their mind. People were getting proposed to after winning medals. It was just a crazy Olympics overall, I feel like.
And you could kind of tell with the places that were built, like the diving venue. That's the word I was looking for, venue.
Yes.
The water polo venue. The things that are normally enclosed were sometimes left open and that weren't out in the open since like the 2000 games or the 2004 games. And you could kind of tell that's where the Rio was cutting back on some money, because that was a big concern going in, that they're spending all this money and the economy is in shambles there, and you had all these riots. But kind of looking in retrospect to how the games in general went, it was kind of just covered up and people really didn't talk about it. I think NBC did a really good job kind of just focusing on the games and focusing on what we were there for instead of focusing on all these negative issues, because I think we have enough negative issues to look at.
I mean, you look at the way the world is right now with everything, not to get all political, of course, but I mean, when you look at everything going on, even with the U.S. elections, you look at all the Syrian civil war that's going on, like no matter where you look, there's chaos and pandemonium, but the Olympics are that moment where, enemies can become friends, or at least more civil competitors, of course, which I think was fantastic. Looking at the official medal count, the top three, the U.S., of course, ran away with the Olympics again this year. 121 total medals, of course, as they just ran through the competition. 46 gold medals, 37 silver, 38 bronze. Great Britain came in second. They had 67 total, even though China had more overall medals than them, but Great Britain had more gold medals than they did. With 27 to 26. But, I'm not surprised anytime I see the United States finishing on the top of the medal count. Best country in the world, best athletes, best everything, basically.
Well, and it's because athletes can travel from all over the world and come, and they can immigrate to America, and then they become American citizen, and they choose that, hey, America gave me all these great opportunities. I want to be a representative of America.
Yo, you're absolutely
right.
And
I think that's why America does so well in these games. But I also wanted to look at some of the highlights.
Please, yeah. I think there's a lot of things that need to be talked about.
What I personally wanted to start off with was, which I thought was really cool. You told me about this, Baxter, before the Olympics even started, and I was like, whoa, this is super cool, was the refugee team. I thought that was, I don't even know if it's an idea or if it was just like, hey, we'll just do this, but I just thought it was really cool that people who are from countries that are war-torn, that had to escape their countries because violence, and some countries, which I found out this year, can't always be in the Olympics or are refused to be in the Olympics because of political issues, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool that there was athletes able to compete even though there were countries, they're from countries that they can't be in the Olympics. I thought that was really cool.
I completely agree. I think looking at how the refugees did, they didn't do anything special. I think we were able to look it up and see that they didn't, I don't believe there was an actual medal issued to the country at all.
I thought there was, but I looked and I couldn't find one for them, unfortunately. But still, it's kind of one of the things which is kind of also special about the Olympics is here in America, it's like, yay, they won a gold medal, good job.
Yeah.
But some people, it's, oh my gosh, they got to the Olympics. That's even better than a medal for some of these countries. Or they, look at racing or track and field. You have to do a couple prelims and then the semis and the finals.
Even if you make it to the Olympics,
if you get to the finals, it's a big deal for some countries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even looking at some of these countries that only got one medal: United Arab Emirates, Trinidad and Tobago, Portugal, Nigeria, Moldova, Morocco, Finland, Estonia, Dominican Republic, and Austria. All those countries only won one medal along with a couple others. But look at all the Niger, the Philippines, Burundi, they all got one medal as well too. Jordan, Fiji. So obviously those smaller nations that are not known for being powerhouses.
And I believe that Fiji medal was the first medal for Fiji, and I believe it was in rugby. And this is the first year that rugby was allowed. There was a couple first sports.
Yeah. Rugby sevens, they called it this year.
Yes. And I forgot what there was another sport that was first, but I can't remember. But anyway, rugby is huge there, but it was never in the Olympics, so that country never really cared about the Olympics because there wasn't a sport that they were also really big in to get them there. But now it was in there, and they went in and destroyed everybody. The whole country was glued to a TV screen, and that's just another thing that I just love about the Olympics, of bringing everybody together that we talked about before. It was just really cool. Another thing, Simone Biles.
I was about to say, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about
setting
Simone.
the world on fire and being called one of the greatest gymnasts of all time with her performance.
At 19 years of age, she took home 4 gold medals and a bronze medal as well. Taking home 5 total medals in one trip to the Olympics is amazing. It really is. And you watch the way she flipped and dove and tucked and everything along, on the floor, on the bars, on whatever she was doing. She's just an overall athlete. That's if you look at the definition of an athlete, Simone Biles' picture is there in the dictionary. She is just absolutely flawless and incredible with what she does.
And there was also a gymnast there who was in her 7th Olympics. I can say that word.
7th Olympics?
7th Olympics for gymnastics. She was 48 years old. Wow. And that is around that age. I believe she was late 40s.
Yeah.
And that's a sport dominated by young people. You rarely see, especially in the women's side, people going into the Olympics over 25. It's rare if you're in the 20s. It's mostly teenagers. If we all remember Beijing, that controversy, I think now the youngest you can be an athlete is 13 and in the Olympics, but back in the Beijing Olympics, I believe it was 16, and all those girls, they looked so young, and just setting an example for that's how young they are. And then there's a 48-year-old she's vaulting through the air, and she's been doing this forever.
I love it. There was one thing I wanted to bring up. There it is. The Olympic medal bonuses from National Olympic Committees. So if you were an athlete or a team and you finished with a gold, silver, or bronze, this is from USA Today Sports. If you won a gold medal and you were from Russia, you won a grand total, at least in American dollars, you got a $62.6 thousand bonus.
Nice.
From winning a gold medal. That's about 4 million Russian, whatever they're, rupees, I don't know what the French. Rubles, that's what it is. Rupees something, I don't know. U.S., you got $25,000 if you won a gold medal, 15 if you got silver, 10 if you got bronze. Other ones, Canada, you got 15.5 thousand. Japan, you got 49.9 thousand for a gold medal. I do find it interesting. Britain, if you won gold, silver, or bronze, you got nothing.
Really?
No bonus, no nothing. You're happy to be there and you like it.
I was thinking that during the Olympics if they got any bonus, because look at Katie Ledecky or Michael Phelps. Those guys won 5-6 medals or around there or something like that. And I was wondering, how much money are they making?
That's $25K per gold medal, 15 for silver, 10 for bronze, at least for the United States.
And that's not too bad.
No, I mean, think about gals like Simone. I mean, she won 4 gold medals and a bronze, so she is set, and that's not to say even before she gets all her crazy endorsement deals and everything else, I'm sure she will acquire now after her fame with everything.
Yeah, and then, so transitioning over to something else I wanted to talk about was the Brazilians and how the athletes, not just like how the controversial Rio site or whatever, but the fans and how excited they were for every Brazilian athlete, either if they were the favorite or they were projected to come out in last place. Every time any Brazilian athlete was there, it was full out cheering. And then during the soccer finals and the beach volleyball and indoor volleyball finals, because soccer and volleyball are the huge two biggest sports in that country.
It's so weird that volleyball is such a big sport down there.
They love it.
They
love it down there.
It's so weird.
And they did it on purpose. I swear the match is fixed or something that Brazil got to the finals
of soccer.
Of soccer. They tie 1-1 in regulation, don't score in extra time.
Of course not.
They go to penalties.
Of course.
And then it comes down to the sudden death penalties.
Of course.
And of course, Germany gets their first one save off of a pretty poor penalty shot that was pretty easily saved by the goalie. Mm-hmm. And then in comes Neymar.
The golden boy.
The golden boy comes in and just drains it, and it goes crazy. It was so dramatic. It was.
Well, the soccer gods are known for writing cheeky scripts like that, Grant. That's what they do. And I mean, who else? Nobody else was going to make that shot. It could have been anybody else.
And they could have done it.
Yeah, but nobody would have cared as much.
Yeah, it was cool because it made it that more special that they won. And
exactly.
Look what happened last World Cup in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And was it at that stadium where it happened?
The Maracanã, I think that's where it was, yeah.
And to Germany, and they got spanked in the semifinals.
Different teams, obviously, though, for people who don't know.
U23.
Yep, U23s plus 3 above 23 players. So obviously, totally different squads. Nobody should be saying, we got redemption. You didn't. You didn't.
But still, in a fact, in Brazil's mind, they did.
In Brazil's mind, because they won an Olympic gold medal, yes. If you're Germany sitting at home, you're going, we won the World Cup. We're going to set that on the table right here and walk away. You guys have a nice time with your little gold medal.
But still, it was a big deal for Brazil because they've never won an Olympic gold medal before. It was in their country.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Last time they played Germany in a major tournament, that got destroyed.
Yes, no, I totally understand that. I find those people funny though that are like, oh, they settled the score. I'm like, it's not.
They
the
didn't
same
really
thing.
settle the score.
There's no score being settled. Totally different teams. Totally different overall. But either way, though, if you're Brazil, you have to be happy thinking about the World Cup coming up and everything else and saying, hey, we've got a pretty good young core group of players now. Neymar is still, of course, playing at the top of his game. maybe we can actually be a contender around the next World Cup, of course. So, all right, we are going to run to a break. When we come back, for those of you that know, we love to talk about the Packers here on the show.
Packers.
We're going to talk about that and take a look at the preseason and so much more. You're listening to the BG Sports Show. Stick with us. Back right after this. Back inside the studio of the BG Sports Show. We back, baby. And we bad. Well, that's not it, but we're back, right? I'm Baxter.
And this is Grant.
All right, Grant. Let's move along and talk about the Packers because we love the Packers.
We love them so
much. And we know that we are, of course, our Wisconsin-based sports show, which means we'd be remiss to not talk about the Packers, right?
It would be a sin.
It would be a sin. And thankfully, we are both believers in the Lord Almighty Aaron Rodgers. So,
okay,
something
right.
like that. Don't quote him on
that.
Don't quote me officially on that. Either way, though. So, 2 preseason games are in. Packers are 2-0. They're looking fairly good. Aaron Rodgers has not played a single second yet. Jordy Nelson has not played yet. Randall Cobb
for good
has
reason.
Played sparingly. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, let's look at it, I guess, that way. 2 games in for preseason. Are you content? Are you okay? Are you worried about what you've seen so far from the Packers, Grant?
Not really. From what they've done in preseasons before this, I've been a lot more worried about the team. Let's also take it with a little bit of grain of salt. They've played the Raiders and the Browns, not teams that struggle putting their starting lineup together.
True.
Nonetheless, their second and third strings that normally play the preseason games. But it's a preseason. It's really hard to tell with the preseason. What
I agree.
You're getting.
I will challenge your argument about the Raiders, though, because Derek Carr is a very good quarterback, in my opinion. I think that getting the opportunity to at least play defense against him a little bit was something that the Packers' defense and secondary needed to do.
I think Derek Carr is a very underrated quarterback.
I agree. I mean, let's not forget about it. I mean, he took them to 7-9 last year after I believe they were 3-13 the year before that. So I know they still finished third in the AFC West, but Kansas City played well last year. Denver won the Super Bowl last year at 12-4. It was kind of hard for Oakland to even think about getting to the playoffs last year.
And to put a 7-9 record with those kind of teams in your division, with a rookie quarterback, and a team that's been historically not the best the past 10, 20 years.
Exactly.
That's doing pretty good.
No, I completely agree with you on that one, too. It's funny to see how, even when the Packers played the Browns, too, I mean, RG3, I forgot about him until that game,
right.
And I was at the game, and I'm like, right, RG3 is on the Browns now. And I wasn't blown away by him. I didn't think there was anything that special about him. He did have those couple of just lasers down the sidelines because anybody that knows, if you give him time, he's got an incredible arm. He does. Maybe not the most accurate, but he can still sling a ball 70, 80 yards down the field perfectly.
Now, Baxter,
yes,
you're bringing RG3 up. Let me ask you a question because
Please do.
The number one question, in my opinion, surrounding Packers training camp right now.
Yes.
How is Jordy Nelson going to perform? Look at last year, and I think this kind of plays into why they're not starting Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson and the top players like that. Because remember, last year, first preseason game, second quarter, I believe, even ACL done for the season.
Done.
Just getting off the pup list.
Yes, the pup list.
The pup list.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I'm not done.
Okay,
sorry. So looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at Adrian Peterson. He tore his ACL, comes back, has an amazing season after that, almost breaking the season...
Single-season rushing record.
Yeah, single rushing... Whatever. I can't...
All that stuff, yes.
And then look across the spectrum. Look at RG3.
Yeah.
Doing fantastic in Washington. Tears his ACL. Not really... He doesn't really have it anymore.
No.
So far that we have seen, he still has his career ahead of him. He could still produce something.
He's still a young guy.
But right now, he hasn't been up to where he was before his injury. Where do you think Jordy Nelson is going to land in that?
Well, Jordy Nelson, the wide receiver position as a whole is a little difficult to gauge because it's not like the running back position where you have to throw your body 90% of the, I mean, you're getting hit almost every single play if you're a running back. You get that handoff, you go through the middle. You'd have to argue that your job of getting 10 yards is a lot harder than a receiver who has to go 10 yards. Not to say that receivers don't get hit, but Jordy Nelson is not going to see contact every single play. He's just not. The Packers don't throw him the ball every single play. From a quarterback perspective with RG3, you touch the ball every single play. You've got to do 1,000 things at once. I can understand a little bit why a guy like RG3 struggled to still find his feet right now. But Jordy Nelson is one of those players that we see him. He's taking his time. He knows how important he is to the Packers. The Packers, McCarthy, Rodgers, they know how important he is as well. But nobody is in a rush to get him back, though, which I think is good. I think that what we saw last year from Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams and Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis and everybody else is an indication.
Ty Montgomery, don't forget.
And Ty Montgomery, the little bit Ty played. I love Ty. I think seeing that take place is the main catalyst why Jordy does need to be back soon, as soon as possible. They're doing the right things. We already know he had another hiccup in the opposite leg, though. He had something in his knee, a little hiccup in his knee. I don't know what that means. I know that he just...
Undisclosed injury.
Yes, he had what is it, a hockey? He has a lower body injury?
Yes.
Something like that, basically. But I think the Packers are doing the right thing. I think that because Jordy is not the number one thing that needs to happen for the Packers, I think his transition, his way he'll come back into the team, I think will be a lot easier for him because he's not going to be called on every single play like AP was. For AP, it was like, look, either you're going to get it or you're not. And he decided to get it. And for RG3, he just couldn't. He just couldn't handle it. So obviously two different guys, two different ways that they go about doing their business on and off the field. But Jordy Nelson, I think, he won't be the same elite receiver. So I don't want Packer fans to think that he's going to come back and be like this incredible superstar. He's had a lot of time to recover, which is fantastic. However, he also is now still going to have to share the ball with 5 or 6 other talented receivers on the team.
Well, he's always had to do that, and I don't really know if we can gauge and if he's going to be an elite receiver as he is. I think Jordy Nelson is Jordy Nelson. He's got a great personality, a great work ethic, He's a fantastic athlete. So I think, like exactly what you said, he can just put himself into the lineup right away when they call on him, and he can get into it. I will disagree a little bit with you, maybe not fully. I think he is a higher priority than maybe what you were making it sound like, because look at the offense last year. They had a good 6 games. They went 6-0 opening the season.
Yep.
And then teams started to figure out, hey, Randall Cobb can't beat us down the sideline and
it's true.
Burn us with a 70-yard run. James Jones can't do that. Jared Abbrederis can't do that. Jeff Janis can't do that. Ty Montgomery can't do that. And Devontae Adams can't do that. Let's just bring everybody up. Now you have nobody to pass it to. And Eddie Lacy is feast mode, and he gained 100,000 pounds.
Not 100,000 yards, no.
Now you have one great quarterback, but nowhere to really go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's a really big deal that Jordy Nelson comes back. And people, I think, were just trying to get over the fact that he wasn't there in the season saying, no, we don't need him. Mm-hmm. He's not a big key. And no, you do need him. Well, he is a big key.
I don't doubt the fact that a guy like Jordy Nelson is vital and important to what Green Bay does week in and week out. I mean, obviously, you take a Jordy-less Nelson Packers last year, and underwhelming, pedestrian. That's what you can kind of call the Packers offense last year.
From their previous seasons.
Yes, from their previous seasons. Obviously, with Jordy Nelson being back, that adds a completely different dynamic, which I support. I'm excited as a Packers fan to have him back. I'm always the man that is wondering, well, how is Jordy going to do the first time he gets wrecked across the middle?
Right.
That first time that safety comes up on a quick slant and just drops him, is he going to get up? Or is he going to be slow to get up?
Well, his ACL was a non-contact injury. That was just one of those fluke things where...
But think about it, though. He hasn't taken a real hit in a year.
Well... But also, look, he played all through, I'm assuming, high school, college, and the NFL. He's taken those hits before.
He has.
Just because he took a year off doesn't mean that he's paper or glass anymore.
No, of course not. It's just you have to wonder, though, about the NFL, as we say, gets faster and stronger each and every single season. at a wide receiver position where we know Jordy's not the smallest guy. He's obviously very talented and works out and keeps himself in very good, physical physique. I mean, for goodness sakes, he is 6'3", 217. I mean, that's one of those things. However, though, he's also on the north end of 30, though. He's 31 now this year, going into his 10th season playing. I'm just worried, though, because it was a non-contact injury. You don't know the mental side of Jordy Nelson. You don't know what it's going to be like that first time he steps off and makes that non-contact catch and then tries to turn to get up the field where all of a sudden he's got 5 or 6 yards in front of him. And then he'll probably be like, okay, let's go. And he'll get after it, obviously. But, every single Packer fan is going to hold their breath the entire time he catches that first pass and tries to make a move and run up the field. Where I'll be like...
Because we all knew it. Because it was just a normal thing in the preseason.
Yep. We've seen him make the catch 1,000 times.
It was like a 7-10 yard pass.
Yep.
He turns around, jumps up, catches, and then when he hits the ground, he makes a cut. And he does that. That was like his bread and butter. He does it all the time.
Receivers across all divisions do that all the time.
Right. And it was just kind of like one of those fluky things. And I agree with you that people are going to be holding their breath. But I do think that he is an important key to this team, and I don't think anybody really doubts that.
No, I don't think so either. It's going to be interesting. I hope we see him here in this third game and the fourth game at least a little bit, just for maybe his sake, if not the Packers fandom as a whole, just to kind of calm down a little bit and say, okay, he at least still can catch a ball. Or okay, I mean, because we saw against the Raiders, he dressed, he warmed up, but then he just changed out again. It was more so to get that mental side of things. Right. Like, all right, let's go through warm-ups, let's get in the groove, game day, baby. And then he was in street clothes after that.
Now, kind of transitioning a little bit, kind of looking at the defense now.
Sure.
Because the defense last season, I think, more or less kept the Packers in the season.
Which is a funny thing to say.
Yeah, because it's been for the last 5-7 years, it's been just lights out Packers offense, mediocre Packers defense. Mm-hmm. Now, if we can get the defense from last year, and if the Packers can put together the offense that they had in the 2013 season, put those two together, I think they're going to have just a fire team
I agree.
For anybody
and
to deal
some people
with.
could argue that this Packers offense is better than it was back in 2013, depending on who you ask. There's no James Jones, but I mean, there's still a lot of young wide receivers, so you can kind of make up for what James Jones didn't do.
I'm still on the fence with the whole James Jones thing. I understand why they brought him in, and I'm not disagreeing with the fact that he did okay.
Sure.
But he had a great first couple of weeks, and then people kind of figured him out, and then it kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that some of the 10 wide receivers that are
12.
The 12 wide
12
receivers.
wide receivers. It's that's typical Packers though. They always bring in, they always draft at least one, and they bring in a bunch of others, and just kind of see what happens and hope for the best.
Let's wait on the defense. Let's talk about the wide receivers.
Okay, I think we need to.
Who are you looking at for your starting? We'll do top 4.
Top 4. Okay, if I'm picking my top 4, Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb will still go 1-2. 3 is a hard position. I wrote about this at Vavel USA a couple of months ago. I'm even trying to remember now who I said was my number 3. I believe I said it was going to be Ty Montgomery is who my number 3 is going to be. I've always liked what Ty Montgomery does. He's a little bit bigger version of Randall Cobb, so you could have that issue about whether or not they're going to both play the slot or if you're going to put Randall on the outside. I trust Ty Montgomery more than I trust a Devontae Adams or a Jeff Janis. I know that Devontae's got the size, but we saw how, if you really want to talk about someone that dropped the ball last year, it was Devontae Adams.
Yeah, he literally dropped
the
ball.
He did, and he became
constantly.
the crybaby of the Packers. Every single call. I think he should have been on the soccer field last year with how many times he was whining at the ref, saying, "Oh my gosh, you touched me, he pushed me, he looked at me." Like, get over it. It's soccer. It's football. It happens.
How long do you think the Packers are going to try on him if he produces the same season this season as he did last?
I think he'll be gone if they don't. If he has another poor season this year, I don't see them keeping him for a very long time.
Because what happened last year is they saved him a spot, and the Packers had a lot of young talent in the wide receiver position.
They had a very young team last year at the receiver position
that had a lot of promising talent coming in, and they saved him a spot, and he did not perform, I think, to what people expected him to.
No,
and that was kind of disappointing.
I don't think so. No, it was that was the one thing you talk to any Packer fan. You say, hey, tell us one player that's underperforming this year. Everybody's like, oh, Devontae Adams, or Eddie Lacy. It was one of those two. More so, if you had to pick a wide receiver, people would be like, Devontae Adams, 1,000%. Just horrible, horrible player.
And then we'll get to Eddie Lacy in a bit. Wow, all this Packers talk.
I know.
But
Love Packers.
I also wanted to ask you,
Yes.
the bottom two guys, 5th and 6th, is it still going to be Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis?
I think it will be. I don't know enough about the younger guys that are on the team this year. I mean, Jamal Johnson, Herb Waters, Ed Williams. I've seen a little bit of Ed Williams. Who was the other guy? Who was the guy they drafted this year? Trevor Davis. They drafted Trevor Davis in the 5th round. I've liked a little bit I've seen from him in the preseason. He's out of Cal. And as many folks know, if Aaron Rodgers likes you, you will likely get a roster spot. That's just kind of how it goes. Do I see Jeff or Jared getting cut? Probably not. But at the same time, if one had to go, who do you get rid of out of those two to make room for a potential better budding rookie?
I know you're a big Jeff Janis fan. He is having currently right now injury struggles, but
I think he did something to his left hand. Yeah,
he broke his hand. But Jared Abbrederis had that concussion last season.
Yep.
He had was it an ACL his first season, or he had some season-ending injury.
He's had he's been an injury-plagued person. Yeah,
and he has done well on the field when he's got the time. So that's kind of one of those tough decisions that the Packers, per usual, are pretty good in the wide receiver spot, but you just don't know who's going to step up.
I would be shocked if Ty Montgomery was not on this roster.
Oh, I think that would be a mistake if you don't put him on the roster.
I agree, and I think it's going to come down to, it's either going to come down to Jeff or it's going to come down to Jared, I think, at the last day, because if Trevor Davis does as good as I think he will, you can't keep 7 receivers on the roster, can you? Do you practice? I mean, if you don't keep one of these 6, you're going to practice squad the other. I totally get that, but then it's like, well, we've given Jared and Jeff so much playing time. Now, would it be a slap in the face to them to send them down to the practice squad? But then we drafted Trevor Davis in the 5th round.
And you don't really want to get rid of your draft picks.
It was a 5th-round draft pick, and it seems, from what I've heard, he's done a fairly good job. He's a bigger version of Jared to some extent.
Was Jared Abbrederis drafted? I don't remember if he was.
I thought he was drafted.
I think Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis were both drafted.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they both were drafted, yeah.
What you can maybe do is if you wanted to have 7 active wide receivers, you could possibly drop one of the tight ends because you do have Jared Cook that they just picked up coming off of the Rams. And
Justin Perillo, Casey Pierce, Richard Rodgers.
They've messed around with Justin Perillo. He had his rookie season last year.
Backman,
and he was up and down. Then you have Richard Rodgers. You know, the Rodgers to Rodgers connection.
And many people love it, of course. Why not?
But he underperformed. Definitely, the Packers want to get back to the form of the Jermichael Finley days.
Yes.
And they haven't found that kind of tight end. And me personally, I think Jared Cook might be the answer.
A lot of people have said that, yeah.
Because he did pretty well with the Rams. And I think if he can mix well with the Packers offense, I think he'll be a good option.
I never minded Jared Cook. I really didn't.
So. No, I do like him.
I know you want to talk about Eddie Lacy. We'll talk about him right after the break.
Sounds good. And the defense. Can't forget
the defense. All right, you're listening to the BG Sports Show for at least a little while. We're trying to figure out that name. Let us know if you can figure that out for us. The BG Sports Show on Facebook, at BG Sports Show on Twitter. Help us come up with a new show name. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show. I'm back.
And this is Grant.
All right, Grant, let's move along with our Packers talk. Over to the defense and Eddie Lacy and special teams. The punters. Do you want to talk about the punters first?
Well, yeah, sure. You're the big kicking guy.
I try to be.
We'll start with your experience during the first preseason game against the Browns. Mason Crosby kicking those 250-plus field goals.
My boy, Mason Crosby. What a guy. Every time I saw that field goal go through, I was like, that guy right there is just boom, from 55 and then from 54. I was like, that's my boy.
He's a special guy. He's a special kicker.
He really is, but you know what made me sad, though? He looks old. He's gray. He's looking so old. He's
going into his 11th season.
Oh, Mason, don't ever retire. What am I going to do when Mason? What am I supposed to do when Mason Crosby retires? In like 80 years when he retires, what am I supposed to do?
Walk onto the Packers.
I will take on Mason Crosby. Fill me in. I mean,
Train me.
For those that follow me on Facebook, I posted some field goal kicking videos from this weekend. It was so strange. My uncle was like, "Hey, let's go kick some field goals." I was like, "I haven't kicked a field goal in many months, but sure." I'm like, "I don't have any cleats. We're kicking off of a kickoff tee, and it's like a size 3 ball." So I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "What's the worst that could happen?" And it had just rained, and there was a cross freeze.
Yep.
I was like, okay.
Hey, you kicked the 35-yarder.
I did. I kicked a 35-yarder. That one was on video evidence. I did make one from 51. That was not on camera. But that was nice to kick one in tennis shoes. So it took me a little while to get my form and everything back, but it was fun to get out there and kick. But in terms of Mason Crosby, though, to answer your question, Mason Crosby, in my opinion, is still a top 5 kicker in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Some
No
people
problem.
will argue that point, but I think you can.
I don't see how. He had that one bad season.
Exactly.
He had the one blemish season, and for kickers, that can sometimes just ruin your career because kicking is a big mental game.
It's true.
And for him, he turned it around. He's like, people still believe in me. I got this. And then he's just cruised to the level that he was before he had that bad season.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at it. He was 24 of 28 last year, 27 of 33 the year before, 33 of 37. You know, he's got an 89, an 81, an 85% field goal percentage. He missed an extra point in 2014. He missed 2 extra points in 2014. But last season especially, though, he's very, very good at what he does.
And I know some of those missed field goals were like end of halftime, and Mike McCarthy's like,
you're plus 50, just take a swing at it.
Right.
One of those things.
Just make sure that it goes out of bounds. Don't give him a chance to return it. And if we get 3 points, good on ya.
YOLO kind of a thing, basically, is how it all goes in a lot of those things. But no, Mason Crosby, in my opinion, still one of the best kickers to ever play, in my opinion. But
you're a big Mason Crosby fan. I snatched him from fantasy football last year, and
first round this year. I remember asking you.
Crosby.
I remember asking you too. I was like, "So, what do you want for Mason Crosby?" And you gave me some like outlandish deal. I was like, "Screw you!" I'm like,
I was like,
not a
everybody
chance.
on your team.
Yeah, for Mason Crosby, I'm like, I honestly thought about it for a good 5 seconds, and I'm like, no, it's not worth it. I think I made the playoffs last year. I don't remember. Either way. But no, let's the punting situation. It's very rare that you have a punting battle. We saw this a couple years ago when they brought in
some dude. I can't remember his name.
Who was the kicker? Who's actually on the Raiders right now? He's just there for funsies because we know Sebastian Janikowski's going to get the job. I can't think of his name right now. Giancarlo Stanton sticks in my head, but that's not obviously what it is. But either way, some Italian dude is kicking. They brought him in to go against Crosby. Crosby obviously won that battle, but now you've got Tim Mastay, the seasoned veteran, going against the rookie from Minnesota, Peter Mortel. Peter Mortel, I believe, having some Wisconsin ties also. I could be wrong about that, but I think there's some. I've seen some people that have been like, "Oh, Peter Mortel." I'm like, all right, cool, sure.
Well, it's maybe because he's from one state over.
Yeah, punters are people too, I guess. Yeah. But I guess my question to you, Grant, is: has Tim Mastay overstayed his welcome in Green Bay? Is it time for the red-headed Rocket to move on?
If the Australian.
Is he Australian?
I'm pretty sure he's from Australia.
Oh, Tim Mastay.
I'm pretty sure he's from Australia.
That's news to me. Either way,
but I personally have not watched Peter Mortel punt. I don't know if
I've seen him punt several times. I'm not blown away, but at the same time I'm like, well, Tim Mastay wasn't that great either. Considering what we're used to.
The problem was Tim Mastay is mediocre at best now. When he came onto the Packers, he was doing really well.
Yep.
He would have 50-plus yard punts almost every single time that he needed to, or was consistently under 20 yards.
Yes.
Now he can post up 25-yard punts, shanks. He can
Shankopotamus is real.
He can sometimes post a good punt, but it's kind of hold your breath. You never know what's going to happen with him.
Yes.
So I'm kind of okay with if Peter Mortel can show that he can consistently punt, maybe not as far as Tim Mastay's maximum, but can do something maybe 5, maybe 10 yards less, but consistently. I think the Packers will like that because I know last season watching the Packer games, I was like, oh, well, you never know how this
Adventures
is
in
go.
Punting with Tim Mastay, basically is what it came down to.
They should have started a new show
exactly.
just like that.
Well, here's a couple of numbers for you. Last season, Tim Mastay kicked 81 punts. That was the most ever in his career. On the other side of that, he averaged 43.9 yards per punt, which is the second lowest of his career. He tied his rookie year numbers, so he averaged 43.9 yards per punt as a rookie. He did have the most yards ever punting last season, of course, because he punted 81 times. But the biggest thing that it comes down to as a punter is, if you're backed inside your own 10-yard line and you've got a punt out of the end zone, do you trust Tim Mastey, a seasoned veteran, or do you trust a rookie who might drop the ball and give up a safety or get it blocked or not have his timing done correctly with the center?
That's just kind of one of those things where you're like, as a coach, as Mike McCarthy,
Yeah.
you have to make that call. It's kind of hard for us on the outside looking in to see what's going to happen. But for me personally, I've seen the last 2 seasons Tim Mastey decline steadily. 3 seasons ago, he was fine. He started to fall off two seasons ago. Last season, he wasn't nearly as good as he was a couple years ago.
No, he was atrocious last year.
I'm just kind of scared to see that he's consistently gone downhill to see one more season with Tim Mastey.
I agree.
What is that going to look like? I don't really want to know if it's more of the same as the last 2 seasons we've had.
I completely agree with you on that one. I think the punting battle will be one of those things that those who are die-hard Packer fans will be like, look at this punting battle. Like, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But
it does, though.
It does.
It does.
That's the thing. At the end of the day, it does matter. Punters are people, too.
Now, Baxter.
Yes, Grant.
Eddie Lacy.
Yes.
What do you think about him? You watched him against the Browns.
I did not watch him against the Browns.
You did not watch? Oh, he didn't play. No, he did play. He played a couple snaps.
He played the opening drive,
Yes.
and I was still walking in from the parking lot.
So you didn't watch him play.
Didn't physically watch him play.
I thought he played. But the second game,
I did watch the Raiders game.
He did take a lot more snaps.
He did score a touchdown.
He was very explosive, and it was nice that touchdown. It wasn't like he broke a run for 60 yards and then sprinted away from everybody, but it was closer. I think it was within 10, if I remember correctly, and he just broke through the line, found a little pocket, got in, and it was a decent run that isn't like blowing anybody away, but what was impressive was his explosiveness.
Yes, which you want from a guy like him. I mean, he had 9 carries, 45 yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry, 1 touchdown, and he had the longest run of 20 yards. He led all running backs in this entire game.
And I mean, for not playing the whole game, that's pretty good. And especially looking at that's what he would do for a whole game if he had a good game last year.
And those are against most of the Raiders starters too, as many folks know.
And that's a huge improvement for Eddie Lacy, as last season that was his worst season on record. He didn't break 1,000 yards, which even in his 1,000-yard season, I felt like Eddie Lacy was a little lackluster, and I want more from him, from the starting running back. But what I really liked what he did in the offseason, he went and, to me, he lost like 50 pounds of fat and then gained like 25 of it back in muscle, because they said he only lost 20 to 25 pounds. It doesn't look like it. It looks like he dropped a lot and then gained some muscle, which is really good. He kept a lid on it.
I've seen a couple of interviews with him, and I've been like, "You're still kind of big, Eddie." But I think you said more. That's muscle, though.
It's more muscle and tone.
He's a big guy as a whole.
If you look at pictures to when he came in for the Packers and when he left last season, it was total stark difference. And now you can kind of compare him and say that, yeah, he's bigger now, but it's not like fat. It's meat, and he's ready. He's strong and ready to hit holes and run people over. And I'm really excited to see him this season. I think the 3 biggest questions kind of going in is, what's Eddie Lacy going to do? What's
Jordy Nelson
going to do? And what's Davante Adams going to do? But I think one of the questions that can be safely answered with seeing how he's done over the preseason is Eddie Lacy.
I agree.
And also, I forgot the point I wanted to say. I really liked how he's keeping his kind of quiet on all this weight issue and how well you're going to do. He even said that he's sick of people talking about it. He just wants to go out and play football.
Just wants to hit people.
Right.
Or eat people. Or both.
Well, it's a little scary.
I mean, he's a big boy. What do you want from him, honestly? So, yeah, I mean, that's Eddie Lacy. He'll be the starter. Duh, obviously. James Stark's not good enough to replace him.
He's still a solid backup. I'm really a big fan of
Even
James
John
Starks.
Crockett, I think, has done a good job as well, too.
This is only his second season, and he had that one good game last year, and he's proven that he can make a name for himself if God forbid Eddie Lacy or James Starks goes down.
I agree.
But I think the Packers have a steady running back situation, which they haven't had in a couple years, and that's debatable.
Yes.
People think that Eddie Lacy is like the big running back star of the entire NFL. I think they're bat nuts crazy, but to each their own.
Exactly, to each their own. I do want to point something out as well, too. On our Facebook and Twitter pages, we do have an article out there that I'm curious to get people's interest about. It's 3 reasons why Jared Aberdarius will not make the Packers.
It definitely could be possible.
From Lombardi Avenue over there at fansided.com. Go and check that article out, of course, but also check it out on our Facebook page, the BG Sports Show, and at BG Sports Show on Twitter. We are trying to figure out a new name as well.
Now, Baxter, quick question before we go on to the defense, because we do need to hit on those guys.
We do.
That was a weird sentence.
It happens. What are you going to do?
So do you think Jared Aberdarius would still be on the team if he wasn't from Wisconsin or wasn't on the Badgers?
No. I don't think he would. I'm a big believer of how Jared Aberdarius has been overhyped. I really do believe he has. Because being at the Packer game, seeing it firsthand, where every time he even becomes within 5 inches of the ball, people are like,
explode.
Go Jared! I'm like, stop. He's not even that good.
I went to the last preseason game last year, and that was the first time he was able to go on the field because, like, the first day of camp, he got a concussion. We're like, here we go again. And so everybody's like, he's got to make a name for himself and to stay on the team. And then he came onto the field. Lambeau Field exploded for a guy who's fighting to make a spot on the roster, and everybody's going crazy about him. And I was like, I like you, Jared, but I kind of don't at the same time because I want my team to be good, and I didn't really like him when he was on the Badgers. So,
but he was the best player for the Badgers, basically.
He was, but I still remember when they played Michigan State, and he was on defense for the Hail Mary play. He mistimed his jump.
He did.
And Michigan
Badger
State
fans are like, son of a gun, Grant. Why you gotta...
And that was their first loss of the season, I believe. Or like their second one, which killed their chances for the championship run or something like that. But now, defense.
Yeah,
we need to talk
let's talk about defense here
defense.
Briefly, because we got to move along. But yes, defense. What do you want to talk about with defense?
My biggest concern, and I know some people are concerned about the linebacker situation and where's Clay Matthews going to go. My biggest
outside is what I've been hearing. It's what I've been hearing.
I like when they move him around personally.
Well, yeah, he's a fun player to move around.
Anyway, I like that they do that because it kind of keeps the offensive line guessing. Where's this guy going to be coming from?
Yes.
Because he's extremely explosive, like we all know, and they double team him a lot. And if you can move him around, and the offensive line needs to make sure that everybody can guard him.
Yep.
And if there is like a weak spot in that offensive line, you want to just throw Clay Matthews at that spot consistently. But my biggest concern, and I don't know if it's just my thing or seeing the secondary.
You have a lot of things, Grant.
I do. Or seeing the secondary burned consistently.
Yes.
My biggest problem is the secondary or what's going to happen with them. And we talked about before the show, and we've consistently talked about how overhyped Sam Shields is.
Yes.
We both personally
I've never been
don't
that
like him.
big of a fan of Sam Shields.
Everybody's like, oh, he's a Pro Bowler, he's so good, yada, yada, yada. But he gets burned constantly.
Yeah, I've never been we haven't had a good shutdown corner in Green Bay since I think a guy named Al Harris was on the team.
Oh, love that guy.
Charles Woodston was also a good guy.
Oh, yeah, Charles Woodson, and he was only a couple seasons. And that was the last season was that Super Bowl season, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, so Baxter, what do you think about the secondary? Do you think the young guys can step up? Because the young guys like Clinton Dix, he did well last season, in my opinion. He did better than he has done in, I think, the 2 seasons before. Yes, I believe he's going into his 4th season, and I think last season was his best. He had a couple key interceptions, but I think he can do a little more.
I agree.
I think Demarius Randall could do a little more. Quinton Rollins could do a little more. And to be fair, both of those guys didn't see the field
they were rookies
the entire
last year.
time.
Yep.
But I think if those guys can improve, the secondary will be much better, and the Packers can finally say, goodbye to Sam Shields. I think the problem and why he's still on the team is that they haven't had a cornerback good enough to boot him from the spot.
I agree with you on that one. There's a lot of different things that you can talk about when it comes to the secondary. I think first and foremost, you need to say that the Packers, in my opinion, were stupid for getting rid of Micah Hyde. I think that was a terrible move. Getting rid of Casey Hayward was another bad move on their parts because you don't like Sam Shields. I don't like Sam Shields.
Right.
A lot of people don't like Sam Shields. I think this season, the Green Bay Packers secondary is going to live and die based off of how well Demarius Randall, Morgan Burnett, HaHa Clinton-Dix, and Quentin Rollins play, not Sam Shields, because we know Sam Shields is getting a little bit older. We know he's not as good as we thought he was.
And I just think he's a liability in general.
I agree. No, I do agree with you on that one, because let's be honest, the Packers' pass rush is not there. When Clay Matthews gets doubled, there goes basically the majority of the Packers' pass rush.
Well, you have the new guy from
UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA,
which
Kenny Clark.
Yeah.
People are concerned about his ankle, but,
he's a big guy.
There's always
6'3", 314. What do you want from him?
Exactly.
He's 20 years old.
So if he can produce, if there can be some consistent pass rush.
I mean, you've got Mike Daniels on the team. We know he's a good player somewhat.
Yeah, but, to be fair, the Packers didn't really see the B.J. Raji problem coming.
Yeah, he's gone.
I was a really big fan of Johnny Jolly, but he had off-field issues.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you get your pass rush from? And especially if, the big...
Because Julius Peppers is not as good as he used to be.
He's still a decent...
He is.
He's still decent,
but he's not that elite pass rusher like Clay Matthews is trying to be.
Or his Panther days. He wasn't nearly
exactly.
as good.
Even when he was on the Bears, too. I was still way more concerned of Bears Julius Peppers than I am of Packers Julius Peppers. But Julius Peppers, the veteran leadership, he's inspiring a next generation. I understand why he's there. Smart guy.
But what happens if the PED scandal turns something up? Because you have that...
Yeah.
What most people are looking at is a bogus report.
Yep.
That it's already been proving false for a couple of players. I'm not really expecting anything from it because they just want to interview them. So I don't really know what can come from an interview. I want to stay positive about it that nothing happened. But you never know what can happen. It's Roger Goodell in the NFL. They already have countless scandals going on. They have the Hall of Fame issue. They're already getting sued for that.
My gosh.
I don't even want to get started on that. I could rant about that,
You
honestly.
should. If we had a rant this week, I would join you on that rant.
Oh, it's just frustrating. But I think the defense as a whole, if the young guys can step up, that is the key.
Agreed.
If the guys that were drafted and that were bred in the Packer system, if they can turn it up and have a defense a little better than they did last year and matched with an offense that the Packers had a couple seasons ago, I think the team's going to be unstoppable.
Well, we'll have to take a look and see what happens, I guess. Only a couple of weeks away until the Packers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, we are going to go to one final break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, but we're going to take a look around just the sports world and see if there's anything interesting or intriguing from the sports world that we want to briefly mention before we take off. You're listening to the BG Sports Show. Stick with us right after this. Wrapping things up on the BG Sports Show, I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
All right, Grant, let's take a gander around the sports world, see if there's anything that comes to our minds about what should and should not be talked about. Let's talk about Ryan Lochte first. First and foremost.
Losing 3 sponsors today.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. Speedo, they've ripped away their... Well, I don't know if they've ripped away.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
Nobody wants to see that. Ralph Lauren have also cut ties with him as well.
Not Ralph Lauren.
According to the Huffington Post as well. Do you support this, yes or no?
I'm actually kind of on the Ryan Lochte defense.
Interesting.
I'm a very controversial person. I always take the non-popular views of most things. I don't know. That's just my personality, but to me, yes. I'm not saying that Ryan Lochte...
I'm surprised you're not a Vikings fan or a Lions fan.
Yeah. I don't go that far. I don't stoop to that kind of level.
I know when to stop.
But yes, Ryan Lochte did screw up. He did mess up. Yes, there was alcohol involved. Yes, there was also a gun involved, and that he was getting yelled at in a language that he didn't understand while he was intoxicated in a foreign country.
Yes.
Excuse the guy for being a little scared. Please, we're all human. We all make mistakes. Yes, he shouldn't have lied about it. I know he's not completely innocent. But I do understand where he is coming from, and I think why it is so blown up is because Brazil has gotten so much negative feedback from the Olympics, like we talked about earlier, and that they were so progressive about kind of just protecting what little shred of dignity they still had left. Because they're like, oh, not one of the Olympic star swimmers. We need to get to the bottom and see what happened. And I think that's part of the reason why this whole thing kind of just exploded.
I agree. All right, let's move along to college football. Notre Dame, they had football players arrested on gun, marijuana, and battery charges. 6 University of Notre Dame football players were arrested, 5 on suspicious marijuana possession, and the 6th after an altercation at a local bar.
Possibly punching a police officer in the face.
My goodness, the pride and joy of the Fighting Irish. They've already lost.
Hey, at least they're not Baylor. Baylor's been going through the worst offseason I think I've ever seen a team go through. But I think one has already been cut for the season, or at least the opener, I believe, from what I saw, but
It looks like, from what I'm seeing here, any student arrested on a felony charge also faces dismissal from the university. That is what the Paul Brown, the Vice President of Public Affairs and Communications at Notre Dame, has said. It's also, of course, concerning because Notre Dame is ranked number 9th in the ESPN preseason football polls.
And now possibly losing 6 of their players.
6 of the players, regardless
games.
of how big or not they were, you still are losing 6 players from your team. I think the university gets it right. I would have a zero-tolerance policy personally if that was me. I think that's a smart move for them to drop them like they're hot, if that does end up being the case.
I think the one that had the assault is in a lot more hot water than the guys on possible marijuana possession.
Mm-hmm.
I think those guys are not going to be cut for the season or like dropped from the university, but I think they are going to see some disciplinary action.
Yes, I agree with you on that one. All right. Let's talk about kickers for a moment. Let's go to Tampa Bay for a moment.
Always got to talk about the kickers.
Yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming under major scrutiny, as many people know, after they drafted Roberto Aguayo in the second round.
They drafted a kicker in the second round.
And they traded up 15 spots to get him.
I don't understand.
USA Today Sports is saying to say Aguayo has been a disappointment in the preseason would be an understatement. He's already missed 2 field goals from 32 and 49 yards.
Really?
Saturday night, he misfired an extra point as well. This is from a guy that went perfect in college, 198 free, whatever those things are called, extra points. There you go. It was like free throws, free kicks, I don't know. Extra points in college.
Corner kicks, that's what they're called.
Yes.
You got to feel sorry for the guy, though.
Yeah.
He didn't ask to be drafted in the second round. He didn't ask for this ludicrous thing to happen. He would have been totally fine with not being drafted, in my opinion. If I was a kicker, I'd be totally fine with not being drafted, like most of the kickers, and just being signed in free agency.
He was too good of a kicker to not be drafted, though, I feel like.
But
not in the second round.
In the second round?
No, there's a level of absurdity. That's like that one guy in the fantasy football draft is like, I'm going to draft a kicker in the second round. No.
You're stupid.
You don't do that. You just don't do that.
I think a kicker, they should make it a rule that kickers cannot go higher than the 6th round or something. I think he could have at least dropped to the 6th round, and maybe they'd be like, okay, we can go ahead with this. But you have so many, it's Buccaneers. You have so many other positions that you need to have filled.
Yeah, exactly. The second round, I would love to see, I'm sure there's going to be a 30 for 30 special or something on ESPN in 10 years. It's like, here, Buccaneer fans, remember when
this?
Here are all the Hall of Fame players now that you missed out on in the second round.
In 15 years, it's going to be, they're going to pop up on one of the articles on the best pick that your team missed out on, or
exactly.
something like that.
Something like that. I love it. There's some great comments here from the Buccaneers head coach. He said, in not so many words, we have to make the damn field goal. I would not say worried, but this is the NFL, man. They are paid to make kicks. He knows it. I know it. Everybody knows it. I mean, it is what it is. So he's not saying he's mad, but he's not saying he's not happy at the same time.
I wouldn't be happy if
it's your job.
Yeah, it's
as one that's lived and breathed being a kicker. It's your job. If you
put a ball through posts,
you literally have one job. You're not trying to memorize 1,000 plays, 1,000 different coverage schemes. No, your one job is to get on the field, and anywhere inside about 55 to 60 yards, you have to make a kick.
And from maybe a couple plays and a couple trick plays that you run, all you're doing is kicking a ball. And I mean, I understand that, but I do I do kind of feel sorry for the guy. He has a lot of pressure on him from some stupid mistakes that his organization made. That I don't completely blame him for.
I agree. All right. Last thing. Conor McGregor.
Yes, I was hoping you were going to say his name.
UFC.
I was hoping you were going to say his name.
Okay, go. Run. Take it.
I just love him. I love his the fact that he's from Ireland, and just his personality is great. And then he comes back, and this is kind of like what I like about UFC. To me, it's kind of unpredictable because you can be really good, but there's a lot of people that are really good too. And there's so many facets of the game that they can beat you where you're not so good at. Look at Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
She's more of a ground and pound girl. She went up against whoever beat her.
Holly Holm.
And
it's kind of sad that people have already forgotten. They're like, who?
Well, because she lost, I think, then. Or, no, did she win? Holly Holm, her next bout? I don't remember.
She lost against Miesha Tate.
Yeah, okay, so she did lose her next match. But she kind of, Ronda Rousey went up against her and tried to do stand-up, and that's how she lost. Now Conor McGregor, going up all this hype, and then lost. Comes back, talking the biggest smack in the world.
Well, we know that's what Conor McGregor lives and breathes and does, though.
Didn't have a good end of the fight, still ends up winning because he had a great opening of the fight, and then just talks the maddest trash in the world, saying that, I'm not going to say what his post-interview was, but it was so good. If you haven't seen the Conor McGregor post-fight interview, you need to, because it's hilarious.
Yes.
But yeah,
bottom line, yes.
I'm a bit, and maybe it's because he's hyped up, and that's all the UFC news talks about is Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor. I don't care. I think he's hilarious. I think he's fun. The UFC is trying to go for entertainment value. They get it in him.
I agree. All right, well, we are done with the next edition here of the BG Sports Show. As we mentioned, we are trying to figure out what to do from here.
I'll give you a hug if you can come up with something.
Trying to figure out a new name. We've tossed around a couple of things, but we want to hear from you. Let us know, of course, on Facebook, the BG Sports Show, and then at BG Sports Show on Twitter as well.
Now, Baxter, how long are we going to be doing this thing? How many times a week are we going to be doing this?
Well, right now, Grant, at least from what you and I have talked about and what our agents have been able to come to in contract negotiations, a.k.a. our wives, it's going to be kind of when we have the free time. It's not going to be every day. It's not going to be 3 times a week. Maybe if we're lucky, it'll be once a week. Grant and I live very, very busy lives.
We do.
Not to say that the rest of you out there don't as well, too, but we're going to do our best to get together maybe every week or every 2 weeks and put together an hour or 2-hour show for you to talk about sports.
Yeah, I have school, Baxter has work, other sports stuff. But we both want to get back at this. We both said how much we missed it. It's just the really big thing is the time for the both of us.
Yes, exactly. All right,
we're just very wanted men.
We are. We're wanted on many facets, which is why I need to go back to work now. But either way, he's Grant Coppersmith. I'm Baxter Colburn. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all again next time on the BG Sports Show.